Was To Live and Die in LA my first feature film? I think it was. I'd done a miniseries, The Thornbirds, and I know I did an AFI film when I first arrived here. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty exciting to be a part of, even have an audition for something like, To Live and Die in LA. I mean, it sounds like a cool name. And here I'd just come out to live and die in LA, so it was, it seemed apropos. It was just an audition like any other audition. What was kind of fun about it was, when we got there, Friedkin's in the room, which is, a little unusual, sometimes, at least in my experience. And, here's the guy who directed French Connection. And he was just so nice and like, inviting and what was kind of cool is he wanted to improvise a scene. It was just a small scene, and I don't know, it was a few lines of dialogue or whatever. But he said, "Yeah, let's just improvise it." And he was so excited about it. It seemed like, and I mean, I'd never even had any director do that, let alone Academy Award-winning director. And so I had just left Chicago, where I had been studying improvisation for a year and a half, and done a bunch of improv before that. So, I mean, I was just stoked about it. So. We went off on this scene, and I swear the scene probably went on for, 5 or 7 minutes. He just kept throwing things out there, and I'd just answer them as if I was the doctor who was, so it was really fun. It's the kind of audition you leave and you're like, wow. I mean, even if I don't get the part, that was so much fun, so it was an added bonus that I actually got the gig. So, my initial impressions of Bill Friedkin, well, when at the audition, like I said, he was just so kind of available and playful and just really there, seemed very interested in actors and in me. And so, that I just thought, wow, I guess every director must be like that, which of course isn't true. But it was really refreshing. On the set, of course, there was a lot of things going on that day, and he was busy, but he'd already made a great impression on me. So. It was just fun all around. I'm pretty sure we probably shot that in a day. That was just a little hospital thing. I think we shot that at maybe one of the abandoned hospitals in Greater LA or something. But it was. It was, of course, it was nerve-wracking for me because it was my little part, and it was really needed for a little exposition. I think for Billy Peterson's character to understand how. They'd lost their mark there at the hospital. But it was a thrill for me, and even if it lasted all day, you spend the whole drive home thinking, did I put everything into that I could have?
Roseanne Brown is a black woman. She's recuperating from a fall she took from a bicycle near USC. She's married. Her husband is listed as serving time for armed robbery at San Luis Obispo Prison. Thanks. I think you ought to let us take a look at you.
I was a young actor in Chicago at a time when, I think Billy Peterson maybe had been there a couple of years. He worked with the Remains theater company there, and I loved going to see their stuff. So I was kind of a fan, so I was, a little, I mean, I wouldn't say starstruck, but, what was cool about that era of, there was a lot of Chicago actors kind of making their way to LA, and, John Malkovich and Gary Sinise and all those guys were pretty hot, the Steppenwolf Theater Company and all that. And I'd worked with the Organic Theater Company when those guys were at, when Peterson was at Remains, and Malkovich and those guys were at Steppenwolf. So I was, we were, he knew who I was and I knew who he was. But, of course, he's the lead in the movie and I'm playing this doctor. And, so it was kind of cool. I think there was a little camaraderie amongst all the Chicago people, kind of like, yeah, man, we're in Hollywood now or something, But, Billy's always nice and very much about the work. That's what was cool, too. I think all of us were kind of theater people. So we tried to find ways that we could tweak things and, make them better that, maybe, people wouldn't think of since it's just such a small scene or something, And Panko is also, the Chicago guy. So, it was fun sort of having that time offset to kind of like talk about, the theater and, all that stuff. It was fun meeting those guys, and Willem Dafoe and that's, these are actors who are, kind of like you suddenly find yourself, rubbing elbows with people who you admired, and it was, that was just a thrill in itself. The hardest part was just trying to be cool and like, yeah, just hanging out with William Peterson and Willem Dafoe. What's fun about that? I mean, that movie was like, it was to me, it was a string of things. Like I happen to have been in The Thornbirds, which was a big miniseries, which got a lot of buzz, and To Live and Die in L.A. was one of those films that was really kind of different. It kind of set up a whole era of filming and filmmaking that was kind of new. I mean, Wang Chung soundtrack was, kind of amazing, and so it was one of those films that you were kind of, oh yeah, I was in To Live and Die in L.A. And I'm sure what'd you play? Oh, I was a doctor. It was an important scene that. Anyway, I'm sure I made more out of it than was, but it's just one of those films, and Willem Dafoe was like so crazy, spooky, great in that movie that it was fun.
I've been coming to this gym 3 or 4 times a week for 5 years. I'm an easy man to find. My reputation speaks for itself. The fact is that if you can't come up with the front money, you're not for real.
What's funny about Hollywood is, if people saw a film and they liked it, it can lead directly to work. You might never know it, oh my gosh, he was a part of To Live and Die in L.A. Oh, and suddenly you're raised in someone's esteem, and you have a little cachet. I don't remember anybody saying, oh, you were To Live and Die in L.A., you can be in my movie, but. Like I said, it sort of has a cumulative effect, and it just is. It's just one of those. It's like a calling card, It's like, oh, you were in a film I've heard of. That's worth something. As far as meeting Friedkin again, it was a little bit of a coincidence. I had just finished Field of Dreams, and Friedkin had this Guardian project going, and he'd cast Jenny Seagrove and Carrie Lowell already, but they were still looking for the male lead in it, so, Friedkin scheduled a meeting with he and Joe Zan, who was the producer, and me at at Joe's office. And, I came in and everybody was happy to meet me. And, and Friedkin was saying, oh, gosh, just loved your work in Field of Dreams. And I look forward to working with you. And I said, oh, well, actually, Billy, we worked together in a movie, To Live and Die in L.A. And I swear, the color just drained out of his face, and he was so embarrassed that he hadn't remembered, And I said, oh, I was in, and he was like, oh my gosh, yes, of course, And I told many of my friends that I think it was because I caught him in that little lack of memory there that he cast me in the movie. He was kind of so embarrassed. I mean, hopefully he liked me as an actor as well, but. I think it's. I mean, I'm not usually the kind of person to do that, So I was kind of proud of myself, and it was good because you can rarely get Friedkin. It's hard to surprise him, So anyway, so it was a little more than coincidence, but I had to work it a little bit.